Very timely. Some of these thoughts, I won't lie, I have had myself with all the new technologies, Gen AI taking up the buzzword, and so much media coverage. A lot of us actually are not working on those technologies. So you might feel like you're missing out on something, you're not on the bandwagon, and all of that.
Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode of the AIM Media House podcast, Simulated Reality. Today we have with us Gary Patel from Albertsons. Gary, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Kashyap. How are you?
I'm doing good too. Fantastic. So we're going to talk about a really fun topic. I'm really excited to learn your thoughts. How did you kind of navigate data science careers, especially as you move into a little bit more of leadership roles? Can be tricky to navigate. So this will serve as a good guideline in terms of understanding your journey and then looking at what it can look for other people as well. We're going to talk about mid-crisis management in data science careers, right? So let's start with the basics. What is a mid-crisis career? What happens? What does that exactly mean?
Very timely because some of these thoughts, I won't lie, I have had myself with all the new technologies, Gen AI taking up the buzzword, and so much media coverage. Some of us, a lot of us actually are not working on those technologies. So you might feel like you're missing out on something, you're not on the bandwagon, and all of that. So let me first start by saying it is a real thing, and it's not many people might talk about it, but almost everyone goes through a mid-career crisis in any career. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is not specific to data science or data analysis, but to any career, right? Now, if you think about a mid-career, so all of us have a working lifespan of about, let's say, 50 years, give or take, right? So 40 to 50 years. So if the mid-career crisis happens somewhere in the 35 to 40 age range, maybe a little bit longer as well, 45-ish. So if you look at a graph of job satisfaction versus time or versus age, it is a U curve. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. It is a U curve, not just a downward curve, right? So after the mid-career crisis, your job satisfaction will increase. And there are a host of reasons. There's a lot of research on why this happens. But let's talk about the career crisis itself. Now, what does it look like? So let's talk about the symptoms. The symptoms, again, they apply to any role, any industry, any job. The individual starts getting demotivated, disengaged, even if they are doing impactful work. The work might seem very impactful to others, or your colleagues, the outside world might even applaud and you might receive accolade. But to yourself, to the individual, it might not still be up to the job satisfaction that they used to feel in the beginning of the career, right? And there are various reasons to that. So we'll get into that as well later part of the conversation. But the symptoms are that demotivation, disengagement, dispassionate towards your job, start holding grudges towards your colleagues, your leadership, your company. You don't like the decisions that they're making. At the end of the day, basically, you don't look forward to your job. Now, these are intrinsic symptoms. Now, there are some extrinsic symptoms as well, which is you might lose your job because you don't have the skills, and those could be hard and soft skills. And when you look for a job, you may not be getting a job because of the skills. There are a whole other host of reasons for which you do not get a job, but just from a skills perspective, they're just not enough to put you in your next role. So this is what a mid-career crisis would feel like.
No, I think that kind of summarizes well, right? And I know that this career crisis is from the perspective of most professions. Especially I want to talk from a technology aspect, even if we don't dive into very specifically data science, primarily because the technology is evolving so fast, right? You have been a data scientist before. After that, you have been you took probably managerial roles and led teams, and then this thing, the more you scaled up your career as into management, the lesser hands-on probably you kind of build it. But at the same time, the technology is evolving so fast that you might get a FOMO of not being working on Gen AI applications hands-on. It's fun to strategically approach it, but at the same time, if you're not coding, that's probably something that you might miss out on. What does that mean for someone's career? Does that matter in terms of staying relevant, especially if you're not working hands-on? And if yes, then how do you kind of ensure that you are up to date, and do you practice, do you sometimes code so that, I've heard leaders that, I spend at least 1 hour in a week coding because I don't want to kind of lose that touch. And what is your approach in terms of avoiding that losing out of touch on technology?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely relevant because you have a managerial role. Doesn't mean you can be out of technologies and upcoming tools, right? So yeah, so there are different causes of where you would feel like you're in a mid-career crisis. Like you said, there are you're using some tools which are obsolete. You're not your work or your org or your team is not at the bleeding edge of the new technologies for various reasons, right? Or I mean, your job may be automated by certain things. Like when I started, I used to write a page of code for like something like a logistic regression or a gradient boost. But 10 years ago, Python came and that could be done by 4 lines of code. So, because of those evolving technologies, you might feel like you are not relevant, your skills are not relevant. So how do you address that? So in addition to that, I just want to mention that a lot of times the reasons are also personal, and it may manifest in your professional life. It may feel like because of the technologies you're not feeling motivated and you have a career crisis. But I would just urge everyone to think about your personal life as well, your personal reasons as well, and maybe that is the root cause of why you're feeling like you are in a crisis, right? But okay, those aside, let's talk about the professional and the technical aspect of a mid-career crisis. Now, I think there are a few strategies to avoid or get through such a crisis. So first of all is the learning mindset is extremely, extremely important. Now, keep in mind, we are talking about someone who has been in the industry for 15, 20 years, worked in a certain way, worked in maybe the same industry for 15, 20 years, right? And it is likely that their industry is getting disrupted, right? So it is extremely important to accept that, be able to accept that, to learn, and equally important to unlearn, right? That I think letting go of things after 15 years of your career is extremely, I've seen it very hard for certain individuals. So it's extremely important to unlearn and then learn and adapt to new technologies. Now, as a leader, you might not be, like I said, hands-on coding every day, but there are few ways of getting around that. I had a client who was an SVP in a bank, and he had a server at his home where he used to code and run algorithms on his desktop, just because that is what he was very passionate about, and that is where he found the most job satisfaction. So it's not necessary that if it's not in your roles and responsibilities, you cannot find opportunities of doing things that you like from a professional perspective. Picking up a pet project is one such thing. Now, in this day and age, there are a multitude of resources available for us to learn, to get into peer groups, to solve projects which are not a part of your regular job, right? So that's one. The other thing I would say is when you're feeling this, think about your projects a little deeply. So when you're in a project, there are two types of activities that you do. One is telic, a telic activity, which it comes from the Greek word telos, which means end. So your telic activities they have a goal, they have an end. You're creating a sales pitch. The goal is to get a deal. You're creating a customer retention framework. The goal is to improve customer retention. You're doing cost optimization. Your goal is to reduce your cost by a certain percentage. Once you achieve that goal, you celebrate it. You go to the next goal, or you make that goal more aggressive, right? Now, so you might feel like you're just a hamster on a wheel, right? Now, but the other part of your job is atelic activities. Now, atelic are the ones which don't have an end, right? So, like if you are building a customer retention framework, you're improving your understanding of customers, of customer behavior, of their needs, and that is what's going to stick with you, and you can carry it to your next project. If you're doing labor optimization or cost optimization, you're actually working with operations staff and you're building those relationships, and that is again that's going to help you in your future. So I think the mindset change is also important to get through such things. The third thing, and a very important thing, is find mentors and coaches that you can talk to, that you can bounce ideas with, and that can show you a different direction. Because when you are in a crisis, in that mindset, it's very hard to see the path.
So basically, you explained as to what the mid-career crisis looks like. But I want to understand, how can data scientists who are scaling their careers in mid-management understand what are some of these symptoms that you can observe to see that, this might be going in the wrong direction, where, you might feel a slump in this thing. Is it avoidable to get a mid-career crisis, or everybody will get one? And if they will, then how do they kind of avoid it? And if it is not, then how do you kind of reduce the impact or alleviate the kind of the consequences that come from it?
Yeah. So, like I said, in the beginning, it is. I mean, everybody will go through a crisis at some point in their life. For some people, it will happen at 30. For me, it happened at 35, or actually 39. It didn't feel like a crisis, but now thinking back, it was it was a crisis. And and some people might experience it multiple times. Like I said, right in this day, right now, with Gen AI taking the spotlight, it's very likely that a lot of us are experiencing that, right? Now, so to answer your question, I think most people go through it. Not everyone talks about it. That's why it feels like, you are the only one going through it. So yeah. Now, of course, there's the end of the tunnel. There are various things that we can do. A few of those we have already talked about, like learning, finding mentors, and so on. The other thing is exploring different roles. Or
My question, Gary, is from the perspective you're saying what to do to avoid it. I'm saying, what are some of the things to observe to notice that that is happening?
Yeah. So again, I think we covered that in the beginning. So from a personal perspective, you would realize. So when you're going through those thoughts, you will realize that you are not the best at your job, right? The first day, like I said, will feel disengaged, demotivated. Even with the same project and the same company, you will still feel demotivated, and
Yeah.
you will feel like you're not getting that job satisfaction. You will be grumpy when you go to work, when you talk to your same colleagues, when you talk to your boss, when you just don't feel like it's the same anymore. So, and there are ways to keep this in check. Like one very effective way is writing a journal, right?
Okay.
If you see your sentiment going from a positive to a negative, while nothing else has changed, you'll realize that you are kind of in that phase. So these are some of the intrinsic factors that we need to, or intrinsic symptoms that we need to be aware of. Extrinsic, I think we talked about. You might lose the job, or you might be put on some projects which are not impactful because you're not up to the skill level, right? And when you are looking for another role outside, nobody wants to hire you, again, because of the skills gap. So this is how it would manifest when you are in a mid-career crisis.
Yeah. Now let's dive into a little bit of the data science aspect of it. Data science as a career has various options. Primarily, from my understanding, right, it can be categorized in two areas. One is you kind of go into an individual contributor role, where you scale your, you work, keep being technical, but then you scale, your career there and then. But otherwise, you get into a management role as well. When someone is going through a mid crisis, right, and they suddenly start feeling out of touch with the technology, or they might still start feeling that probably I'm not, so the individual contributor might feel that, I don't have a bigger team, like, to handle, and this thing, I'm probably not scaling my career. Maybe I'm not too sure. I've never been a senior data scientist. Or the person in management might feel out of technology. Can you help our audience understand the variety of roles that are there, and what are some of the options that they can navigate through this, and then how to kind of take some of, help your experience and what you have seen among your colleagues to kind of avoid that feeling of, being out of touch or being feeling left out. And yeah.
Yeah, sure. So like you said, there are two tracks, right? Broadly speaking,
Broadly,
there is a individual contributor track and there's a manager track. I think there is some sentiment in the industry, especially the traditional industry, that a manager is more important than or more impactful than IC. That's not true. An individual contributor can also create a very high level of impact with their expertise, and the same as as in any managerial role, right? So I think you need to choose the track based on a personal preference, right? You need to decide based on a number of attributes and the frameworks. You can decide what you want and where you are likely to succeed. Even in the same role, like I have seen data scientists, even after growing up to a very senior level, they may still be they will still be dissatisfied because they feel like they have reached a plateau, right? Again, at that point, talking to a mentor really helps because there may be other avenues that they haven't explored and which they could contribute to. For example, I had a very senior data scientist in my previous company, and they felt like they have done a lot, they have done enough, any new problem they could solve, and so on. So while talking, I highlighted a couple of other opportunities. Like one opportunity could be starting up a machine learning university within the company, right? So a forum, a construct where other people can come and learn, and that this person can be the driving force for that. The other opportunity that we discussed was external conferences and references, or being into academics and actually teaching people, right? Either online or going to a physical university. And they hadn't thought about this. So they did like the idea of creating the machine learning university within the company, and they were actually very good at it when they did that. So there are some of these options that unorthodox or options that we don't typically think of. But now coming to choosing a career, right? So there are various options. So there is a tech stream. This includes all your data engineering, data scientists, machine learning ops, machine learning engineering, all of that. And then there is a more the business side, right? Now, for me personally, I was always more attracted to the business side. So I started my career on the engineering side, but then I moved over to the business side. Right? Now, there are some people who don't want to be business facing, who are very happy building the tech solutions and building the technology that powers the business. And again, there are lots of options there. Within the data space, can be a very senior solution architect, a very senior data scientist, a very senior AI specialist who is actually working with your execs, your SVPs, your CEOs to advise, and maybe also advising teams within the company. These are also the people who create the technical strategy. So that's one track. On the other track, on the business side, there's a variety of business functions: marketing, operations, finance, where you can do business analytics. May not be building machine learning models, may not be building AI algorithms, but this is still very impactful to run the business, right? You are helping the business understand the opportunities and identify them, and then work with the data scientists, kind of in an automated manner, address them. There is a big need for strategy analysts and strategy data scientists as well to determine what the future strategy is, what does the next 3 or 5 year future look like for the company. Another role that I have seen upcoming is the product manager role, which could be on the data side, which could be a product manager for data platforms and data products. We've seen in the last 5 to 7 years, we've seen data to be productized and platforms to be created out of that, and someone on the data engineering side or the data science side can be that person if they want, if they are more, they think that they are more customer oriented and user oriented, right? So, and then lastly, there is a role that ties the technical and the business teams together, and that's the program manager. Companies like Amazon, Microsoft, they have technical program managers that work on just analytics projects, machine learning projects, right? So you don't need a coding expertise, but you need to be able to understand the both sides of the equation and tie them all together.
Got it. And now, apart from, I am sure that when, data scientists in their mid-careers while watching this interview will benefit. But apart from that as well, going forward as well, right? It's very important since the industry also evolves at such a rapid scale. It's important to note and understand that how to keep updated. You said it's extremely important to kind of be updated on this. What are some of the methods that you use to keep yourself updated? Obviously, there's reading and keeping up to date with the news, but with regards to some of the career skills, I think dialogues, networking, what are some of the things that you have done and what you would advise some people?
So like you said, I think the first thing is to really subscribe to the news, the tech news, anywhere and everywhere you can. AIM is Analytics India magazine is a good resource for that, right? And then as you learn about these new things, uh, I I've started going to AI focused conferences, right, and all these events where you can talk to your peers and understand what they are doing in the space. Also, there are a lot of service providers and vendors. Someone somewhere thinks of an idea, and they create a startup around it, and they create a product around it. So those are some very interesting places and very interesting forums where you can actually find some of these great ideas. So just the other day, I was at a conference and I saw someone really excelling at AI-driven search, and that's the product that they are selling. So I think it's some of these. So these forums are useful for that. The other thing is meetups, similar meetups, but on a similar to conferences, but on a much smaller scale. 10, 15 people, a very close group, having roundtable conversations on how they are leveraging AI, what kind of tools and technologies they are using. So you need to seek all this out. And again, it's not impossible to find. There are lots of companies like Analytics India magazine who are facilitating these kind of interactions, right? And then finally, like you subscribe to tech news, subscribe to data science and AI experts on LinkedIn and see what they are talking about, and go down to the comments and see who are the other people and what they are responding. So you need to invest time in building out these networks and these connections and consuming everything that's out there. And finally, when it comes to upskilling yourself, and like I said, there are a host of resources and courses that are available geared to your specific role. Even if you, no matter if you are on the technical side or on the business side, there is something for everyone.
Fantastic. Finally, I want to end on an anecdote. I want to understand when you felt that, I'm something around mid-career crisis is happening, and how did you navigate it? And what is your final piece of advice to the audience?
Sure. So this was around in the year 2019. It was in the year 2019, and so at that point, I was already about 15 years into my career, right? And I had, by then, I started as a data scientist. I had about, so I spent a few years just before that role. I spent a few years as a data scientist in a consulting company, then moved over to the business side where I was working with the business stakeholders. So I had spent several years doing all of that. So I was very clear that I wanted to be a business side. Now, in this role, at that time, I was leading analytics for a few stakeholders, marketing, product, and so on. And within 2 years of joining the company and joining that role, I felt like I had done my bit, and I was not I was not learning anything new. And it was, so I kind of deliberated a lot on, why am I feeling this way? Is it even valid? Am I just overthinking? And so on. and I just had a newborn at that time. So I took that opportunity. Oh, actually, before that, I even interviewed for a few roles, and some of them I didn't like, some of them I couldn't get through. So I was pretty demotivated in that phase of life. So I had a newborn at that time. So I decided to take some time off and just step back from work and focus on my son, spend time with him, and just stepping back and taking that time off helped me get a lot of perspective. During that time, I deliberated on what am I as a person, where I want to be in my career. I thought about that Venn diagram of what you're passionate about, what will pay you. So I thought a lot about those things, and I finally, at the end of that, I was very clear on where I wanted to be and what kind of roles I wanted to seek out. So after that, after that phase, I went back. After I went back on from my paternity leave, I chose. I had a conversation with my company, and I chose a role which was different than what I was playing. And that role was actually the role of a product manager for data platforms. And I had never worn the platform, the product manager hat before, but I was very user centric, and I had a very customer centric and a business centric mindset. So I thought that I would really enjoy that role. And so I did. I had a ton of fun. It was very, very rewarding. I was surrounded by people of a very different mindset than I was used to. I was surrounded by product managers and product owners, and that was very refreshing for me. Having that customer mindset and the business mindset, it really helped me, and that orientation really helped me. And I really, really enjoyed my job. I built some data platforms that I cherish that experience even today, and I'm very proud of what I did there. So yeah, a few years later, I moved on to a different role, but actually that role gave me a lot of perspective and insight into what I am as a person and what I want to do in the future.
Fantastic. On that note, thank you so much, Gary. I think it's been a very enlightening conversation. I'm sure it's very, very relevant to so many people, very helpful. I know the first time we decided to talk about it, I was very excited. This is not just advice for data scientists, while it takes anecdotes from the data world or AI world, but I'm sure that this is relevant for many people. Thank you so much for making the time for this interview.
Thank you.